The Oakland NAACP just put out a letter saying largely the same thing, which is, hey, all this talk was great when it was boosting up the left to come together for the election, but it's killing our communities because we don't have the policing we need, the resources have moved, and it's hurting the communities that were talked about being helped the most. So how do you address, Mr. Mayor, this imbalance between what in many cases Democrats were saying was the right thing, which now seems to be causing the wrong outcomes in those same communities they wanted to help?
Bill Peduto is the mayor of Pittsburgh. He's not anymore, but he was a great mayor, and he had an expression that I think is relevant. He said there's three types of people in the world: Democrats, Republicans, and mayors. We don't have the time or inclination to be partisan, to be ideologues. Frankly, we're in his city. Best mayor in the history of the country was Fiorello LaGuardia, and his line was similar. It was, potholes aren't partisan. In other words, mayors are hired to solve problems. And I think what you've heard up here is Democratic mayors breaking away from party orthodoxy in a great way. You heard me say that we've grown the size of the police force. Again, I don't know a single city that has defunded the police. We sure as heck can't. We have Democrats who are, let's say, unpersuaded by the wisdom of bail reform, et cetera. That is typical for the job we have, because we're not ideologues, we're problem solvers. I'd like to think that one of the reasons our numbers are so good in Toledo this year is because we've done a little bit of everything, and I don't care what the ideology is. And if it's a conservative right wing to add police, well, then guilty as charged. Some might say it's a left-wing wacko that invests in youth programming. Well, we've done both, because what we do is we solve problems. The partisanship that you keep talking about doesn't come from city halls. It comes from state legislatures, a lot of times who preempt the decisions that mayors try to make, and Washington. Those are the partisan political animals. LaGuardia was right. Potholes aren't political. There are problems, we try to solve them. So it's not a surprise to me at all that Democratic mayors up here are not enamored with Democratic Party orthodoxy in a couple of cases, because that's not what we do. And if we're having success in Toledo, it's because we approach things just from a problem-solving perspective.
Just like regular people.
That's right.
Mayor Scott.
No, I was just going to agree with the mayor that I think the audience should understand from a mayoral standpoint, going back to your respective communities, understand that your mayor is an executive leader. Your state representative, your state senator, your U.S. congressman, your U.S. senator, they're legislators. Their living job is to argue. Whereas for us, we're going to argue now and then, but it's really to focus on how we move from platitudes to policy and action with a real issue that's happening in the day and time in our lives. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, or you're independent. Like he said, it's a both-and approach. I've been very progressive on public safety reform, but been very progressive on public safety. And I think that it's not an either or, it's a both and how we move forward, because that's exactly what Little Rockians want. They want to make certain you have a safe city, but also they don't want officers cracking heads over people for no apparent reason. Well, so that's the reason why we have to have this both and.
I want to get take from both of you, and then we're going to go to break. But just to keep it in context, let's be honest about this. A lot of this happened in the wake of what we saw happen to George Floyd. And it created a wave of a desire for change. And this was too harsh. This was too much. And, whether you agree with that is, of course, subjective. But the response was less policing, don't be so harsh on these communities.
No, the response was not less policing.
No.
There's not a single city.
The talk. I get your defund thing, and I'd have to look at that.
Talk is narrative. Politicians talk.
But it matters. It's what people hear, and it's what they then come to expect from the people who are saying those things.
I'd like to think facts matter, too. There's not one city that...
Absolutely. But when the fact is, people say after George Floyd, and again, I'm not judging it. I'm just, as someone who lived it, right?
They can say whatever they want. They can say grass is blue.
I know, but they're in your party, and they're putting it out there as a message of what's going to matter going forward. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.